everybody, my name is Tanya and today we're going to talk about The Golem and the Djinni by Helene Wecker. So The Golem and the Djinni was my November pick for the Booktube Recommends Project and it was recommended to me by Sarah from Sarah Actually Reads, and she described this one as one she loves almost as much as The River of No Return by B. Ridgway, which, if you know Sarah, you know is high praise indeed. So I ended up listening to the audiobook of this one after listening to Jenny from Jenny King talk about how fantastic that was, and the audiobook is narrated by George Goodall and I think he did a fantastic job, so I definitely would recommend the audio version if you're interested in this book. So I ended up reading this one with the lovely Yamini from The Skeptical Reader, as she saw that I was going to be reading it in my November TBR and joined in, which was fantastic. I really enjoyed discussing this one because I think it's quite an interesting book. And so in its most basic form, this story is exactly what the title says. It is the story of Golem, Hava, and a Djinni, Ahmad, and what happens when they both find themselves in kind of 1899 New York, and things go on from there. So the golem of the story, Hava, is a female golem who is created to be the wife of a man named Otto Rothfeld in Poland. A golem, if you're not aware, is kind of a person made from clay, and Otto Rothfeld has, asked this rabbi to make him a wife. He wants a bride, and once Hava has been created, he takes her and he's going to New York. He's going to start a new life there. So on the voyage over from Europe to New York, he brings Hava to life, and then very soon after he passes away. Now this happens in kind of the first 20 odd pages of the book, so it's not spoiling anything. And so Hava's relationship to Rothfeld, as much as he's out for a wife, would basically be as a servant master kind of situation, where whatever Rothfeld said she would be compelled to obey. And so golems are naturally linked to a master, and she finds herself bereft of that kind of direction, completely alone, not knowing anything about the world that she's found herself in, and struggling to find her feet. And so it's kind of following her life and her struggles as a single widowed woman in very late 19th century New York, on the superficial level, but at the same time she's got this secret that she is in fact a golem. She's not human at all. She doesn't need to sleep or eat. And so trying to hide that while at the same time getting to grips with this world that she's found herself in is very interesting. At the same time, we're also following our second character, the Djinni of the story, and that is Ahmad. And Ahmad has been imprisoned centuries ago in a vase or a pot of some description, and he's accidentally released by a tinsmith working in New York, in Manhattan, and again, he's been trapped for years. He's got no knowledge of the intervening time and no real knowledge of how he was trapped. But again, he finds himself suddenly free and alone and having to find his feet in a world that he's never known before. And so we go on, learning about each of the characters until their paths happen to cross, and the kind of bond that they form in that they're very different, but they're both very different from everybody else too. And the kind of relationship that they form based on that, and it's a tentative and a fraught one, and watching that develop and wondering which direction it would go in was really interesting. And I definitely came to very much care for these characters and was very invested in their well-being and the outcome of their storylines. And yes, I really enjoyed it. So this one is classed as fantasy, and it definitely is fantasy in that we have these magical elements of the presence of golems and djinnis, but at the same time I think this has got a very wide appeal, and so if you're a reader that doesn't necessarily like fantasy, I think that there is a lot in this for you. It's based very much on a fantastical kind of premise in terms of the characters that we're seeing and the presence of magic, but at the same time it all feels so very real, and they just feel like real people. And that's another thing I really enjoyed about it, in that we're drawn to these characters and they're drawn to one another because they're so other and they're this magical being, but at the same time I think it's very much a study of their humanity and the way that they're trying to fit into society, and that they're both different from society and different from humans, but at the same time I think they're different from a lot of examples of their race as well. And so I think while the premise of this one is all very fantastic and very magical, at the same time it's a very real look at humanity, and I think a lot of people would enjoy it. So Yamini was telling me when we finished this one that there is now slated to be a sequel to this book, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. I think it depends which direction it goes in. At the moment, I think I'm kind of happy with the way this ended, and kind of it's finished in some way, but you can also imagine how it goes forward in the way that pleases you best. And having a sequel implicitly spell that out, I'm not quite sure how that's going to go and which direction Helene Wecker's chosen. And also wondering, once the conflicts that were resolved in this book were finished, what are they going to throw at these characters next? And whether I really want to read about that. So I'm kind of going to wait and see, and kind of hear the buzz around this one and how it really turns out. But at this stage, I'm kind of cautiously thinking maybe I'll just leave this one, and maybe it would have worked better as a standalone, but I'll reserve judgment until the book actually comes out. So all in all, I really enjoyed this one. Thank you to Sarah for recommending it to me. I'm very pleased to have read it, and I would definitely recommend it to a lot of people. So if you read this one, I'd love to hear what you thought about it down in the comments, and whether you're excited for a sequel or whether you think this was better as a standalone. And if you've got any questions, please let me know. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!